TV coming up, the night on the run.
It's a great picture, isn't it? Political parties like to follow the polls to find out who likes them and who doesn't. But of course many voters are turned off by politics in general and politicians in particular. At the last election the turnout was just 60%.
Today, two of the smaller parties, UKIP and the Greens, attempted to woo some of those voters back. Alex Dunlop has been on the campaign trail.
Today's mission for UKIP and the Greens to win over the disaffected and the disillusioned. A fisherman all his life, Clive says that EU quota restrictions have crippled West Mersea's fishing industry, and he blames the big political parties.
They want us in the scrapyard. Our boats that you're standing on now, they want us gone.
And do you really think UKIP could make a difference?
Who else can help us? Because nobody else is there. You know, we've got to have some hope.
So Lord Pearson from UKIP was among friends here.
This is the living example of why we have to get out of the European Union if we hope to save our economy and particularly our fishing industry, which is facing disaster thanks to rules made in Brussels about which the British government can do nothing.
It's not only these fishermen who are disaffected. Young people too are pretty fed up with politics altogether. Polls suggest that many of them won't even bother to vote. Which is why the Green Party visited City College, Norwich today. Students were given free rein to ask any and all questions. I tried one of my own.
Of the third of you that can vote, how many are minded not to vote at all?
Just one. But many here, of course, have an active interest in politics. What about other students? Chris, Steve and Daniel say politics is irrelevant.
It just doesn't interest me in any way.
What could they do to get your attention?
Probably nothing.
Why are you so apathetic about it?
Not concerned one bit, not at all.
All their views and opinions, they're all just, doesn't really interest me at all.
A lot of young people are disillusioned with politics as usual, and we understand why. We in the Green Party passionately believe in doing politics differently, in campaigning in a clean way. We want to clean up politics in a big way.
A fortnight today, the Greens and UKIP will want to secure the votes of those who'd normally look at the ballot form and choose none of the above. Alex Dunlop, BBC Look East.
Now, during this election, we've been asking what you think of the campaign and asking you to pose questions for the politicians.
Last night we put the Chancellor, Alistair Darling, on the Look East park bench. Well, tonight it's the turn of Charles Kennedy for the Liberal Democrats.
Cambridge City Centre. Mid-morning.
Julian,
thanks for coming. Good
to see you. Brought the good weather with us as well.
Absolutely. Well,
fantastic.
Wonderful to see you.
Hello. Sun shining, a famous face. Just for a moment, the campaign got a little bit rock and roll. We had the election bench and 10 minutes set aside at Cambridge railway station before Mr. Kennedy got on a train back to London.
OK, question from Steve Smith, viewer. Lives in Norfolk, he's a teacher. He's worried about class sizes. This is an easy one for you. Go on. It's an open goal.
Well, it's not an easy one for anybody, actually, if you're trying to level with people. But I think that the party's commitment on education has been a good one. We've built up a solid profile on that. Going way back 4 or 5 elections ago, where we argued in the mists of time for a penny on income tax devoted to education. And we reckon that in England, what you can deliver in the English school system are class sizes of 18 and 22 primary and secondary respectively.
But, I mean, how achievable is it, really? I mean, it's a bit like promising people eternal youth. Everybody will vote for it, but, but it's virtually impossible. It is impossible, isn't it?
Well, it's not, because it's a combination of things that have got to be achieved. First of all, you've got to get more front funding into education. That's partly central funding. It's partly cutting back on other things that we will not do as a government. It also means as well giving the local authorities more capacity than they've enjoyed.
OK, let's move on. I know you've got a train to catch, so we'll be quick. We've got an email from Kevin Ward from Peterborough, who talks about a multiracial society, which he's happy about, but he's worried about immigration. What can you say about that?
Well, I welcome the fact that Kevin acknowledges we're in a multiracial society, and I think it's a much better Britain as a result. What we're saying about immigration generally is that you don't want to get into some sort of Trappist or inward-looking society. That will only generate tension that is not healthy. And what you do want to do, for people who've been living here now for more than 10 years and have lived lawfully and are in productive work and all the rest of it, but are not properly enjoying citizenship, it's better to accept reality and say if you're contributing towards society, you can stay. Get yourself regularised. If, on the other hand, you've got a criminal record or you've been doing things that are outside the civil jurisdiction, that's a very different story. We're not going to be soft on people in that category.
And with that, we were out of time. He had to go, we had to go. The police couldn't quite work out what was going on, but one thing is certain, the bench will be back. Mike Liggins, BBC Look East, Cambridge.
It worries me that that bench is so light.
It is.
So it's not particularly high quality, is it? And on tomorrow's Look East...
You might say that. I'm not going to say anything.
We'll be hearing what our People's Panel makes of tonight's Leaders' Debate, which starts at 8 o'clock tonight on Sky News, Sky 3, the BBC News Channel and BBC Radio 4.
Now, for most of us, taking part in the London Marathon would be an enormous challenge. I think for me it would be a piece of cake. It is 26 miles after all, so no, I'm not going to do it, I promise. So spare a thought for those plucky souls who do it in fancy dress.
There'll be all sorts of costumes. There's always someone dressed as a banana or Superman. But look out on Sunday for the man in the suit of armour, who's from Suffolk.
Meet Carl Day from Ipswich, a.k.a. Carl Knight from Planet Bonkers. He was training at Helvingham Hall in Suffolk today ahead of the big race.
Get off my land!
I have plenty of lube in the right places. I've had a bit of sponge added to the suit to cushion, but in all fairness, I'm expecting it to hurt. And unfortunately, the suit of armour was made for someone that was 5'8", and I'm 6 foot. So you can appreciate there's contact points that aren't great.
Carl is raising cash for the British Heart Foundation. He's been doing it for 10 years. His daughter was born with heart disease, and he says she wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the money spent on research.
At one time we were told that she may not even survive the night. So obviously, thanks to the research and development that the British Heart Foundation have funded, we were fortunate enough to celebrate her 16th birthday earlier on this month. So this is my way to try and repay and say thank you to all their efforts.
The history of the marathon is littered with certifiable acts of madness. There was that bloke from Essex, remember, who did it in a deep-sea diving suit. And the chap from Cambridge last year, dressed as a rowing boat. Carl's suit weighs 6.5 stone. In training, he's averaging about 2.5 miles per hour. So, allowing for repairs, a bit of spot welding along the way, it'll take him more than 11 hours. He hopes to raise another £10,000 to say thank you for the life of his daughter. So, big respect to the man in the full metal jacket. A night called Day. Sean Peel, BBC Look East.
Fantastic story.
Unbelievable.
He bought that on eBay, you know. He got it for $480. It should be worth about £1,000. But the bloke who was selling it spelled Armour, A-R-M-E-R. So nobody was bidding.
Oh, that's a clever man.
As well. Phil, the weather.
Thank you, Stuart. Well, it's not often we get 2 days the same.
Of Armour on Sunday.
No, don't think about it.
Very warm.
That's all from us. Have a very good evening.
Good night.
Good night.